Okay, so Tulsi Gabbard, right?
Right.
We got to talk about this. Former Democrat congresswoman,
Mm.
even ran for president back in 2020, and now she switched sides, joined the Republicans. That not exactly quietly either.
Yeah, talk about making a statement.
She made the announcement at a Trump rally.
It definitely got everyone's attention, that's for sure. Choosing to align herself with Trump, like that,
Yeah.
it was a power move, for sure.
It really makes you think, who is Tulsi Gabbard, politically speaking? Where does she really stand? Let's back up for a second, for those who might not remember all the details.
Right, so she's got this really interesting background. Born in American Samoa, served in the U.S. Army Reserves, even deployed to Iraq. And that military service, it's a huge part of who she is, shapes her whole worldview, especially when it comes to foreign policy.
Yeah, she was always known for being, how do I put this? She always kind of did her own thing, even as a Democrat.
Oh, absolutely. She was never afraid to criticize her own party, especially when it came to military intervention.
Yeah. And then she goes and does this. Shows up at a Trump rally. Says, quote, "The Democratic Party does not offer a place for individuals like us."
Interesting. Who are individuals like us, though? What's she getting at there?
Right. It's like she's implying there's a whole group of people who feel like they don't belong to the Democratic Party anymore.
Yeah.
Like they found a home with the Republicans.
And that's the question, isn't it? How big is this group? Is it a real phenomenon? Or is it just Tulsi Gabbard marching to the beat of her own drum?
Well,
She's always kind of done.
And how will this impact the Republicans? I mean, it's got to have some effect.
Right.
What do you think?
Well, she brings some interesting things to the table. Her military experience could be a real asset. She might appeal to younger voters. And she might even sway some of those disillusioned Democrats we were just talking about.
Like whip.
There's always a but, right?
Right.
It's not a perfect fit, not even close. Her views on certain social issues, let's just say they could rub some Republicans the wrong way. How she handles those differences, that's going to be fascinating to watch.
Yeah. It's tricky. You mentioned appealing to younger voters. What is it about her that might resonate with them, especially in a party that sometimes struggles to connect with younger generations?
It's not so much about her age. It's more about her willingness to challenge the status quo, even when it means going against her own tribe, that kind of independent thinking. It can be really appealing, especially to younger voters who tend to be, let's say, more skeptical of traditional party lines.
So it's about authenticity, walking the walk, not just talking the talk. And speaking of walking the walk, let's dive into her anti-interventionist views a little deeper.
It's a great question, because on the surface, it does seem kind of counterintuitive, right? Republicans, military intervention, like those things go together.
Yeah.
But there's this whole segment of the GOP who are really, they're just over it. Tired of these endless wars. They might find some common ground with her there.
Yeah, it's like she's tapping into something the Republicans haven't really figured out how to address.
Exactly. And then you've got her views on civil liberties, which are, well, they're interesting to say the least.
It's more than just talk with her, though. Give me an example. How has she actually fought for civil liberties?
Okay, take her stance on the Patriot Act. She was, very critical of it, especially those parts about mass surveillance. She argued that it eroded civil liberties in the name of security.
And that's an issue that resonates with a lot of people across party lines.
Yeah.
Really. That whole idea of, individual freedom versus government overreach.
Absolutely. It's not just a left-wing or right-wing thing. It's a human thing. And that's something she seems to get, which could make her appealing to a lot of different voters, potentially. Libertarian-leaning Republicans, even some independents. Who knows?
So she's found these areas where those traditional party lines, they get a little blurry.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder about the Democrats a little bit, too.
Right.
Like, is this a sign of something bigger? Is there a real rift within the Democratic Party?
That's the million-dollar question,
Yeah.
isn't it? Is Gabbard just, is this a one-off? Or is it a sign of things to come? Yeah. Are we going to see more politicians jumping ship? More Tulsi Gabbards out there ready to shake things up?
And what does it say about, party loyalty in general these days? If someone like Tulsi Gabbard, with her history, with her background, if she can switch sides, what does that tell us about where we are politically?
It's like the whole, I don't know, the rules of the game have changed. Or maybe they're being rewritten right now as we speak.
People they're less interested in towing the party line these days, it seems like. It's more about finding candidates who actually align with their values,
It's more about the issues, less about blind loyalty.
Exactly. People want to know where you stand on climate change, on healthcare, on the economy, and they'll vote accordingly, even if it means crossing party lines, which is kind of refreshing in a way, don't you think?
It's definitely interesting, but it also makes things harder to keep track of, you know?
Trying to stay informed these days, it's like drinking from a fire hose.
You know what I found really helpful for that? Have you heard of this? It's called podcastworld.io. It's basically a search engine, but it's specifically for podcasts. So,
Yeah.
let's say you want to hear what Tulsi Gabbard actually said about a specific issue, like foreign policy. You just type in your question, like, when did Tulsi Gabbard first start criticizing U.S. military intervention? And boom, it'll pull up every podcast episode where she talks about that.
That's amazing. I mean, I've used other podcast apps, but it's always such a gamble. Like, you never know if you're really going to find what you're looking
Well,
for.
this is different. This is next level. And they have this other cool feature. It's an AI chatbot.
A chatbot for podcasts. How does that even work?
So, let's say you want to hear more from Tulsi Gabbard directly. Right. Beyond just this one event, you can actually have a conversation with an AI version of her through this chatbot.
Wait, so it's like I'm talking to Tulsi Gabbard, but it's AI.
Pretty much. It's been trained on hours and hours of her past interviews, speeches, all that. You can ask it about her policies, her thoughts on current events, anything really.
That's incredible. It's like having like a personal Q&A session.
Exactly. And it makes staying informed so much easier, which is what we all want.
We want to go beyond the headlines, to actually understand what's going on, what people are really thinking, not just the sound bites.
And speaking of understanding what's going on, let's bring it back to Gabbard for a second. We've talked about her background, her beliefs, the potential impact of her decision, but what does all of this mean for the future of U.S. politics? Like big picture stuff here.
To me, this is bigger than just Tulsi Gabbard. This is about a trend we're seeing globally even, not just in the U.S. They're disillusioned. They're fed up with the old way of doing things, with the two-party system.
They're looking for a new way forward, a different way of doing politics.
And they want authenticity. They want leaders who actually connect with their concerns, even if those leaders don't fit neatly into, those old categories.
Like the rule book's been thrown out, and we're all just trying to figure out what the new rules are.
Exactly. So what does that mean for 2024? For the future of U.S. politics? I don't know. It's hard to say.
What do you think?
I think we're in for a wild ride. That's for sure. I think we could see more political shakeups, more unexpected alliances, more politicians breaking with their parties, following their own paths, even if it ruffles some feathers along the way.
It's going to be unpredictable. That's for sure. But hey, at least it's interesting.
Right. Definitely keeps things exciting. Makes you wonder, what's next? What could possibly happen next?
Exciting and unsettling.
Yeah.
Yeah, that about covers it. It's like we try to make sense of things. We try to predict what's going to happen in politics. But these days, all bets are off.
And that's why it's so important to look beyond just the headlines, right? To really dig into the details, the motivations, the potential consequences.
Exactly. So we've talked about Gabbard's background, her political ideology, the impact this could have on both parties. But what does it all mean for the average voter, like you and me?
I think it really underscores something really crucial, and that's that your vote. It's your voice. It's your chance to say, this is what matters to me, this is what I believe in, and you have the power to make that choice, regardless of party, regardless of what anyone else says.
It's about finding those candidates, those policies that really resonate with you on a personal level, not just voting the way your parents voted or because of, some levity.
It's about thinking for yourself, questioning the old assumptions, and not being afraid to shake things up a bit.
Just like Tulsi Gabbard.
Exactly.
And it all comes back to being informed.
Right.
Like knowing what you believe, knowing what the candidates stand for.
And that's where tools like that podcastworld.io thing you were talking about, that can be so helpful.
For real. It's like having a personal assistant for your podcast listening.
Yeah.
Helping you find exactly what you need when you need it.
Being able to track how someone's views have changed over time, hearing them explain their thought process in their own words, that's so valuable.
It gives you the power to connect the dots yourself, to form your own opinions.
Instead of just parroting what you see on TV or on social media.
So, as we head into 2024 and beyond, I think the message is clear. It's not about blind loyalty anymore. It's about being engaged, being informed, and using our voices to shape the future we want to see.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
This has been a really fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for joining me and for sharing your insights.
My pleasure. Always happy to dive into these complex issues and to try to make some sense of it all.
And to everyone listening, Thank you for joining us for another deep dive. Don't forget to check out podcastworld.io. It might just change the way you listen. Until next time.
Same.
Next time.